You could tell that the owners of the house had friends who matched their income level. The driveway and parking area was littered with Jaguars, Benz, Maseratis, Ferraris and Bugattis. The Toyota they were in, though new, looked totally displaced. Susie was ecstatic and continued to babble. Jerry was quiet and absorbed the magic of the affluent atmosphere. Tuxedoed Greek gods escorted guests to the back infinity pool area. The air had an overpowering smell of food and exotic perfume. The lights that littered the valley floor below danced just over the edge of the pool, like they were talking. A canopy of eerie musical sound escaped from magically hidden speakers. Susie was animated. Jerry was analytical. She has finally fallen into the social bunch she thought she belonged to. Service people walked through the crowds with trays of white wine and pink champagne in long crystal glasses. Susie got 2 glasses and handed Jerry hers, amid her own hysterical laughter. Jerry held hers in her hand as though for decoration. Her intoxicated gaze scanned the scene before her. And there he was. She had stumbled upon his gaze that was fixed on her. Their eyes locked. Jerry felt embarrassed and gazed away as her independent cheeks blushed. Her handsome male gazer smiled but did not release his gaze. His gaze followed her movement with her girlfriends to a safe corner of the space as they took apart the crowd with their eyes and chattered with laughter and glee. Jerry listened to her friends, but her eyes turned back to him. Now. He smiled and turned away like a cat who had espied the perfect mouse, and was now silently and internally delighted at the thought and excitement of the chase that he intended to start. He smiled in the corner of his full but straight-line lips, as he sipped what looked like scotch or brandy from a heavy gold-rimmed snifter. He did not look at Jerry again, but Jerry's gaze rested on him every 3 minutes to the second. Her eyes absorbed everything about him. His height, yes. He was a clear 4 or 5 inches taller than her. His skin, he had a creamy olive hue to his skin that made his ethnicity nebulous. He had chiseled cheeks and dark eyes with thick eyebrows and eyelashes that could actually be seen from across the pool. He was slightly heavy-set, but not fat. He stood squarely on the ground. His jovial self-assurance was a magnet for Jerry. Wherever she looked, her eyes kept being pulled back to him. He did not look at her again. After a while, the girls skirted the pool to get to the buffet table. It was while Jerry was daintily picking up some coconut whitefish fingers that she heard a deep but mellow voice behind her. "You may want to get a few more of those," he said. "They're delicious." Jerry turned around, and there he was. His cologne was divine. His brown-green eyes smiled, but his face and countenance pretended to be serious. Jerry laughed nervously and picked up yet another fish finger. She placed it in her plate in front of him. "That's the spirit," he said, and finally smiled. Susie and the other girls giggled and deliberately hurried away, and Jerry found herself alone at the buffet table with the enigmatic gentleman, with him telling her all of the delightful and not-so-delightful food choices she should make. "I'm Arthur," he finally said. Jerry had to put down some serving thongs to shake his hand. He held her hand for 1 second longer than usual. He then gently allowed her to pick up the thongs again. He laughed. "Would you care to share some of that with me? That's quite a lot of food." For the first time, Jerry took a good look at the plate and noticed how full it was. She realized that she had been led to this slightly embarrassing position. "This is all your fault," she managed to joke, "and you're right, you would have to share it with me." They moved over to a small white table, sat opposite each other with the food in the middle, and talked and watched into each other's eyes, each putting food in their mouths respectfully on occasion, between slow banter. Arthur was a corporate lawyer and the senior partner of a very prominent firm that Jerry knew of. He seemed quite settled and mature in his outlook of life. Ever so often, when Arthur would reach for another morsel for his mouth, he would let his hand touch Jerry's. She blushed each time. Arthur and his chin dimple would smile back in return. "So, what do you do?" Arthur asked Jerry. "I'm an accountant," Jerry said Arthur seemed satisfied that this specimen was worth his time. Good for you, he said, and it seemed to be a genuine compliment. Jerry would look over at Susie, who would jokingly give Jerry her back each time. Arthur slipped it in. So, Mr. Jerry gave you a night with the girls? He amusingly probed. I do not need a Mr. Jerry to give me permission to do anything. Besides, that is a no, Mr. Jerry, she said with a smile.